Welcome everybody to the February 6th version of the City of Monroe City Council work session. My name's John Howard. I thank you for coming. Looking around at our team, it appears everybody's present with the exception of Ms. Malcolm. I want to go ahead and begin with department reports. Could I have Logan, please?
Yeah, give a quick report on a couple of items of interest. The Spring Street sidewalks, you've all noticed a lot of work going on out there. What we're doing is starting in the middle section of West Spring Street as we explore some additional options out towards MLK to see what we can do for future traffic alleviation out there so that we don't create a sidewalk and have to tear it out later at that end near White Oak. So that's why they've started there. They finished up erosion control. Storm drain systems are being installed right now. The contractor's portion of the project is slated to be completed by August 31st. And then from there, city crews will be working on the street lighting and the trees that we'll do as a final product probably this fall. On the North Broad LCI project, we just received the letter from GDOT approving the city doing the lighting in-house. So those contracts are in the mail right now. After we sign those, it'll be back to GDOT. We'll get our permits and we'll proceed from there because we already have the contractor approved. So that'll be starting very soon. Walton Plaza that we purchased out on East Spring Street, we're in the midst of selecting an architect, engineer, and a project manager, along with a general contractor. So all that's going on right now, and then from there we'll secure the financing for the rest of the project. But all in all, that's a pretty good purchase. I'm happy to move forward on that for that new police department and whatever else we do on the master plan out there. The truck connector, aka bypass. Everything is still on schedule. Currently, GDOT's doing soil test and some environmental studies on each parcel of land that the connector needs to go through. Land acquisition will start in September of this year, according to the GDOT budget. And construction is slated for fiscal year 2020, the state fiscal year 2020, which means maybe late calendar year 2019 or a few months thereafter in actual 2020. So those are a few major projects of note.
Fantastic. That's exciting. Thank you. Mr. Bailey, Central Services, please.
Thank you, sir. A couple things I'll go over in the actual numbers section. You can see the first segment covers the 2017 year for the airport. You got your average sales price, you got your fuel sales with Avgas, and then your overall airport P&L that kind of follows through. That entails all profits or revenues and expenses. Then jumping down to the safety program with our safety committee and through the safety policy that we passed this past year. This is inspections with our safety coordinator going around to facilities, work sites, includes follow-ups, suggestions to different things as it pertains to what's in violation of and what can be safer for the employees in the workplace. And then on the purchasing side, if you've noticed too, the P-card transaction, since we've been doing that for the past year and a half, 3/4 of our purchases are a little over are actually made on a P-card. So that's cut down on a lot of paper purchases and a lot of paperwork that we actually have to do. And then under marketing, Patrice Broughton actually in 2017 sent out almost 25,000 newsletters to customers and whatnot that are informing them on things that are going on in the city. She generally does it on a quarterly basis. And then our public awareness material, she sent out 18,000 over the course of 2017. So she stays fairly well busy doing that. Some of the projects and whatnot that we're working on, updates. As I said, the safety program and committee is probably 7-8 months into what we're doing and trying to implement our new safety policy and program. Tommy Arnold is the gentleman that goes around, does the inspections, and follows up with different people. Bob Seville, who's here tonight to do the insurance renewal, and I have worked, I don't know, for the past, I'd say about a month. Where are you sitting? Right there. On putting together a safety module program that our employees can log in through our website and take. And it pertains to their job requirements, different things. There'll also be a computer set up on site at the training facility. So they can go through these programs that'll then tie in to their department heads and through an HR department. It's something that I think will be well utilized and something that will help us on a lot of our risk management issues and some of the things that we're actually trying to implement within the city. Jumping to the airport, we've recently had all the soil testing bores that were done for the design process for the Eastern Apron rehab and expansion. That's all done. The ALP I'll present here in just a little bit to actually get approval for the final on that, so the DOT, we can send it in and everything's accepted. Website design, I think that we approved in December or January. We have had our first conference call, web conference with them. If you'll actually look at the picture, the Naples, Florida website is similar to what our website front page will look like. I tried to buy the beach and the dock, but we couldn't do that. So we'll.
That's what I was really hoping for.
That was the first thing I asked. I said, can we steal their picture too? But that's what it'll look like. It'll be a no-scroll front page with points of interest that you're going to go to, quick hit buttons, news features. We want to simplify the online bill paying process to where you're not registering and then you're having to go through another process to actually get it done. So just make it more customer friendly and more controllable is what we're looking for. Jump over to Childress Park. If any of y'all have been out there, you've noticed there are probably about 3 dozen trees with yellow tape around them that we're clearing out some of the trashier trees, some of the dead trees, getting that done, clearing out all the underbrush, spraying kudzu. Essentially, we're trying to go back into an overall plan that was developed, that the city had developed for a master plan for the park, and getting that put into place during 2018. So there'll be some work going on. On Stage Walton, if you've been by on High School Avenue, you'll notice that the landscaping's been redone. And then you'll notice in the front steps going up, there are yellow gas lines sticking up and out. And that will actually jump over to where we're going. We're going to put natural gas fixtures, lights and whatnot at some of our older facilities and whatnot around town to, I guess, kind of give it more of that nostalgic look. The Art Guild, Library, Old City Hall, on Stage Walton. It looks nice, and it also contributes to our public awareness for this year, and then it'll contribute going forward because we'll actually meter that gas usage. The other stuff's going on. The pilot park will soon have a community garden. Been working with Sadie on that to get that put in place. We've got the initial design of it and just getting everything done, having a topographical survey done and whatnot, and we'll move forward with that. So if you've got any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Perfect, thank you. Are there any questions? Well, then I'll go. Stay there.
Okay. Go for
The website redesign.
Uh-huh.
We have this fantastic City of Monroe app. Are those two going to have the same appearance? Or are they
The
completely
website
separate?
itself will be, the way it's going to be redesigned, when you open it up on your mobile phone, it's going to look the exact way. It'll just look like a compressed version of what you'll see on the computer.
Okay.
The 311 app what we're using will actually be there. It'll be one of those quick link buttons to where you go to that home page and you can click directly on it. And then it'll take you to that site.
Cool. And that app is really, really well done. And I had another question. So, on Stage Walton, other than the landscaping, do we have any, I know they were having roofing issues a couple of years ago. I'm guessing those are all taken care of. Have you heard anything?
As far as I know, hadn't heard any complaints or
we
anything
replaced
since
that
it was
roof
re-roofed.
2 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's about 2.5.
I just know
Yeah.
Mark Hammond will get on me if I don't say things.
Yeah, I've heard nothing on leaks.
Great.
I don't want to say that, I'm not going to wood.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Mr. Kelly, can you come up with the code department report, please?
Yes, sir. This
Could you,
report
if you don't,
covers the month of December.
if you don't mind, could you come up front?
I don't mind it.
Thank you.
Like I said, it covers the month of December. We had 8 new businesses. We had 11 businesses that closed. We received 61 payments for business license. We continued processing paperwork for alcohol license renewals. The city marshal removed 24 signs from the roadway, wrote 51 repair cleanup orders, investigated 3 tampering and utility cases, wrote 5 citations on those, completed 11 hours of training. The Planning Commission heard a request for a renovation of McDonald's and granted a COA for their remodel. If you have any questions about the balance of the report, I'll be glad to answer them.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Quick and painless, man. Thank you. Sadie Krosick, Economic Development, please.
Thank you. You have the full report in front of you. Just want to point out a couple things. One is that we did have an announcement from MRI Hotels that they plan to build an 80-plus room hotel in Monroe, and that is proceeding forward as far as we know. And the Downtown Awards Dinner is scheduled for next Monday, February 12th, where we'll recognize Business of the Year, Renovation of the Year, and Volunteer of the Year for our downtown. All of our sponsors and volunteers and partners will be there for that. We have done direct mail of our event postcard, which you have an image of it there. These are our city-sponsored events that will be happening throughout the year. It went to Monroe and neighboring counties. So we've sent out many thousands of those. And also on February 12th, we're going to launch a crowdfunding campaign to engage the community in raising money for some places to play activities around town. And it's going to involve 3 parts to it. One is going to be some natural playground equipment and interactive things in Childers Park, redoing an alleyway, Washington Street alley between Washington Street and Court Street, and then a hammock park next to the visitor center in that lawn area. And so we have a volunteer committee that's working on that, and they'll be helping run that campaign. It'll go all the way through the end of March, and we already have some donors lined up and matching gifts that we'll be able to announce throughout the campaign for that. And then there's some other updates there. We do have our GIC retreat later this month in Pine Mountain, Georgia, February 20th through 22nd. And this Thursday is the Chocolate Walk, which is just a little date night evening event that we do in downtown. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions or comments?
Sadie, would you explain the hammock part?
Yes, and there's some images on there.
I saw the images, and I
yeah.
thought maybe you could
We are
explain
borrowing
it.
this idea from Columbus, Georgia. They did this along the river. It's basically just posts in the ground with like 3 hammocks that'll be permanent, but it's places where people can come hook up their e-news or the portable hammocks, and it's open, sunny area. Just a great feature for a kind of an underutilized lot in downtown.
And where did you want that?
It's in the visitor center
Okay.
lawn
I'm
next
sorry,
to the
visitor center.
museum visitor center.
So if
Yeah.
someone's walking around town, they get tired, they can just lay in the hammock.
Hop in a
right?
hammock, sure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Brian Thompson, Electric Telecom. Brian, next week we'll be presenting a program to discuss our utility rates. Kind of a top to bottom rundown of everything we see and do with our utility.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Some items of interest. The delivery of our 37G bucket truck that we ordered last year is coming up in March. That shows you these things take time. So once we order it, this one took about 5.5, 6 months to be constructed. I am normally known as the guy that cuts all the trees down, but I will let you know I do some tree replacements. We are working with the tree board on the Arbor Day thing that y'all are all invited to. We are bringing in some trees to plant at Old City Hall and some places where we have removed trees from the street. These are a few. This is all we could really get from the supplier at this point of decent sized trees, but I'm working with them for trees for the Spring Street project and for some others in the fall, especially around the warehouse area where we removed a lot of oak trees. Lights for North Broad and West Spring have been ordered. It's about a 9 to 10 week delivery time. Hopefully we will be installing some out here on Spring Street when they show up. Now, the one thing you need to realize, the Spring Street project, as you know, is funded fully by us. So we did not have to fall under federal lighting requirements. So the Spring Street project will look a lot better than the South Broad or the North Broad project. The North Broad project had federal money, falls under federal and state guidelines, and it's going to be real bright. There's 62 lights or 63 lights on the Spring Street project, and there's 82 on the North Broad. But that is fully because of federal and state regulations. Then there will be a MEAG CEO roundtable meeting here in Monroe in March. I will send y'all out an email later in the month. We do that here every year. Lunch will be provided. It's a time for you to sit down and have discussion with MEAG senior staff and with the CEO. And that's all I have.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Are there any questions? Comments? Thank you, Brian. Finance, David Johns.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
The performance indicators are all within normal ranges. Nothing really special to point out there. General fund cash balance is back up after collecting over $2 million in property taxes. That should be a majority of the property tax for the current collection. I'll point out on solid waste that the revenues and expenses are a little off on that one. That's due to some audit entries that were already started to get entered or taken out from the previous year. So next month, when we have a little bit better numbers, we can present you a better picture of what's going on at solid waste. But there is more revenue to be posted, and there are 2 landfill payments that didn't come in till late January, so that's not reflected on this report.
Okay.
And with that said, Malden Jenkins will be coming next week to start auditing us. And last week, we had a conference call with our financial software company, Tyler, so it's still many months before we switch over to the new software, but we're excited. And that's all I have, unless you have some questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
And one question on the property taxes. I
Yes.
think you said we've probably gotten pretty much all we're gonna get of that. And I noticed on here, it was 3.3 million, which is 91% of the budget.
Yes, sir.
Why do you think we're only 91% of budget if we've got it all in?
Well, I mean, a majority of it has come in. We still have another payment that the tax commissioner won't send till we probably got it here within the last week, but, I mean, sorry, that was misquoting there. I mean, there's still 9% out there, and he's been very good at collecting, so.
Is that standard? Generally, it's due, what, December 20th?
November.
November the 15th now.
November the 15th. Oh, I can't remember which was county and which was city now that they're all together.
That's all the same.
But that's probably close to what we normally get, right? 90%, then the 10 we have to follow up.
Yes.
Correct. Before we switched over to going with the tax commissioner, a year ago, we were only about 85% collections. Now going with Walton County, they do a combined collection. We'll probably end up in the 97 to 98% range by the time it's all said and done.
But now, the money we just received, will that be booked in 2017, or is that 2018?
Yes, that will get booked back into 2017.
Audit entry back to 17.
It is back in the 17.
Yes, sir.
So, can you tell me how, if you even know yet with this last amount coming, how the tax revenue will compare to 2016?
I don't have that information yet. I'll have to look it up and get back to you.
Just wondering how much more we got than we did in 2016.
Are there any other comments? Thank you. I think we're finished. Moving to the fire department, I believe Chief Glass is here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Monroe Fire had a total of 109 or 193 calls for service in the month of December. They had a very important job in the month of December during the Christmas parade. We made sure Santa Claus got through town with all the cheerleaders and nobody got hurt, and that's a big event for us, a Christmas parade, so I have to brag on that. Of those 193 calls, 109 of those calls are EMS-related type calls, motor vehicle accidents, or assisting in a home with an EMS call. They conducted 543 hours of training. They've done a lot of work on the burn building. If you hadn't had a chance to go out there, I'd ask that you go take a look at it. It's coming along, and hopefully we'll do a live fire burn in there in less than 60 days. But that's coming along, and pending your questions, Mr. Mayor.
I have none. I appreciate you getting Santa through.
Yeah.
Any other comments? If you don't mind, go straight into the police report. That'd be great.
Okay, thank you. MPD had 3,482 calls for service in the month of December, 1,429 calls to the PD, 406 court cases, conducted 273 training hours, 75 Part 1 crimes, 42 or 43 Part 2 crimes, arrested 71 adults and no juveniles. The end of the year allowed us to go ahead and we've done our comparisons on 2016 versus 2017 crime. We saw a 22% reduction in crime in 2017. A lot of that's got to do with rank and file and how they're performing their job and what they're doing. Some of this is also going to be related to the very intense operation that we've done with Federal Bureau of Investigation for over a year and a half, involving gangs, guns, and violent crime in Monroe and narcotics. In comparison, in 2016, we had 122 violent crimes. In 2017, we had 109. That's a 10%, 10.66% decrease. Property crimes went from 835 crimes in 2016 down to 636 crimes in 2017, or a 25% decrease. The UCR and high crimes reported to be changing toward the end of this year. Georgia, like, it's kind of being driven by the FBI, who totals this stuff. We'll be going from to what's called a national incident-based crime reporting system, and it's broke down to almost individual crimes and how they're reported. So it'll be a more in-depth process of how crimes reported. It won't be online in Georgia until late in the year, but it should be up and running. Christmas parade, men and women and police and the fire department done an excellent job, as everybody else in the city, Public Works and everybody involved with that, Sadie, and making that happen. That's looks like a simple operation, but it really isn't. There's a lot of moving parts going on in that day and keeping everybody safe. Real proud of everybody with the city that helped put that together. Wanted to mention Monday at 10 o'clock at the Monroe Library, they'll be opening the Michael Etchison exhibit, not the Monroe Library, but Monroe Museum. That'll kick off at 11 o'clock on the 10th. That exhibit will run through the 10th of May, and I'd like to invite everybody in the community to please take time and go and view the exhibit, and you'll get a real good understanding of the sacrifice that not only Lieutenant Etchison made, but his family's made in his loss of life in service to our citizens in Monroe. Pending your questions.
11 o'clock on Monday?
11 o'clock.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Just just tell your team how much we appreciate them. Every single one of them. And admire them and just really appreciate their service to keep us safe.
Well, I appreciate those comments, and I'll get a copy of this meeting and let you tell them, and they can play it in their
Well, I
training
gotta-
that to do online, and you've made that statement. It'd be good for them to see it that way.
I got a call, and I think I responded and copied you to the email, but three of your officers, Minton was the main one who was called out, had worked with a gentleman whose son had been spending some time at the facility on Relove in Alcovy, and just wrote me a nice note saying how much he appreciated their professionalism and their help, and it meant a lot. Their names are spelled out in the email, but I do remember Officer Minton, so if you would just let them know how much I appreciate it.
We certainly appreciate that, and then in that and many other incidents, they do way above the standard, and we're really proud of them.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Danny Smith, Solid Waste.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
Good
sir.
evening.
Good evening.
I'll be reporting December report and want to highlight the year-end totals for 2017. All of our totals in December were down except for scrap tires. We collected 180 scrap tires, a little over 3.5 tons for the month. The last column on the spreadsheet you got show the running total for the year. On the next report, the pie chart kind of show you, kind of represent what we did for 2017 compared to 2016. Our diversion rate was up 2%, up to 15%, and the diversion rate is the recycling. That 15% reduced our tipping fees close to $57,000. So we actually paid $310,834 in tipping fees. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
And the only thing I'd like to mention, our transfer station tonnage has increased each year since 2014, and our revenue at our highest for 2017 since 2013. Take any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments? I think we're good. Thank you so much.
All right.
Jeremiah Still, Streets and Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Highlighting the report from the month of December. On the admin side, we rented out the community building 11 times. December is always our biggest month for that rental for Christmas parties, and this year was no exception for that. On the fleet maintenance division, that side of preventative maintenance as well as corrective maintenance, there was 54 units of work completed. Our street crew currently is continuing to do and dedicating time for winter maintenance. That was evident with the ice storm or the storm we had, event we had here a couple of weeks ago. Some of the areas that we targeted didn't show the effects of past year's events, such as clipping shoulders and taking care of some of the runoff issues where a refreeze would last a couple of days this year. Those areas dried up a lot faster due to some of the work that we had done in some of those areas. That was a major event for us. We're down a little bit on our material with our salt, and that's kind of a touchy subject when it comes to the availability of that. These people that owns these salt mines now want you to come and get those, and the closest one that we were able to get a quote from this year is in Kentucky. So hopefully before we need it, they will open up delivery again. But we do have enough to sustain several more events, to take care of enough assets to take care of the city for several more events through that, if it comes to that. Moving into our sign and markings division, there was 35 units completed there through various activities, and 45 work orders completed in our building maintenance division. One thing I will say that you should see within the next month or so is a company coming into the city called Georgia Safe Sidewalks. We've done business with them before. They have a patent on a specialized saw that cuts out trip hazards throughout the city, and we're targeting areas of high travel. And what this service will provide will be an assessment of our city's walkways, and from there we'll be able to determine which areas are worse than others. More highly traveled areas will be addressed, starting with the interior of our city, working out, connecting to our new sidewalk project on Spring as well as Broad, and then going out to the further corridors of the city. I'm excited to bring Todd Folk in with that. It's a great deal, and it's really shine light on the areas that we need to address through our rehab program of our sidewalks in the city. I'll be glad to take any questions.
I appreciate your looking at those sidewalks, and sidewalks and trails have been so important through the Urban Land Institute. Is one of the top reasons that folks move about in downtown areas. Are there any questions or comments?
How long does that assessment take?
They can do the downtown area in about 2 days as far as the assessment. Now, once you get out into the longer areas, it's probably, depending on his work schedule, you're probably looking at a month or so as far as getting the complete assessment done.
Perfect. Any other comments, questions? I think we're good. Thank you, Jeremiah. Rodney Middlebrooks, water, sewer, gas, and stormwater.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Report is attached there in front of you. I got 2 items of interest I wanted to cover. One being the 2016 CDBG. The water, storm, and sewer is all installed on 6th Street now. They'll start the curb and gutter next week. Water line is laid on 5th Street. They'll start the water's installed, sewer and storm will start next week on those. So it's moving very fast, a lot faster than we thought it would. Had 0 complaints that I know of, so it's went very well. And then we're in the process of starting our surveys and stuff for the 2018 CDBG application. I think we'll talk about it more later on tonight and maybe next week, but it's going to cover South Madison Avenue from Stoke Street down to Panell, Stoke Street, Knight Street, Lawrence, Mill, Norris, and Pine Park. And if you got any questions, there was a big sewer and drainage on those roads as well. And if you got any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Questions, comments?
If you got none,
We like hearing no complaints.
That's right. Turn it over to Ray Tripp with the Gas Authority to do he's going to discuss some of the gas rates, and I guess a gas rates 101 with you. And so Ray.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney.
Appreciate it.
My name is Ray Tripp. I'm with the Municipal Gas Authority of Georgia. The City of Monroe is one of our 78 municipal members. The Gas Authority is a joint action agency. It is not a for-profit entity. And the city, Monroe being one of our, I believe, charter members. I've been with the Gas Authority for 15 years, and Monroe's been with the Gas Authority as a member for much longer than that. I was asked to come here today with one question in mind, but I will be glad to answer anything that's natural gas related. And the question that was posed to me was and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, but it was, how are the gas rates established?
Yes, sir.
And what are the components of that? Really, it's pretty straightforward. Within the gas rate itself, and each month, let me back up a little bit. Each month, we evaluate the City of Monroe's residential and commercial gas rates because the market fluctuates, and the way the gas is priced is based on primarily on the first of the month spot market price, the commodity price, what the price traded for that month and closed for the first of the month. Within your rate, the city's specific rate for all your customers, there are really only two major components. You have the cost of gas delivered to the city, and within that, there are some line items like the pipeline charges, your contracts with Transco Pipeline, your reserve space on the pipeline, some other small fees to the G&A fees to the gas authority. You have a regulatory compliance service that you participate in. Those costs are also recovered. And then beyond the cost component, you have the city distribution fees, and that is set by the city, and I believe currently it is only like 37.5 cents per 100 cubic feet for your residential customer. We do not change that number each month. That particular distribution fee, if you want to call it margin or whatever you want to call it, is set by the city. And based on my recollection, I didn't go back but a few years and check with your rates and budgets, but I don't think that's changed in quite a number of years. I'll look back at Beth because I work frequently in communication with Beth and Logan and also Rodney. So two main components to your gas cost and the gas rates to your customers. The one only variable that is, the one main variable is just the monthly commodity price. And over the course of the past 12 months, well, let's just say calendar year 2017, that rate only changed month to month, usually within a range of 4 to 10 cents. It's a very small. We're in a very favorable commodity pricing market versus where we were 10 years ago or so. I'm talking, with the gas is traded on the market in million BTUs, and we're in a $2.90 to $3.10 per decatherm million BTU market. We've been there for a long time. 10 years ago, 2007, 2008, we were in a $7 or $8 or $9 market. Significant cost to your customers. Probably the question that some of y'all, detouring just a little bit, and it's pretty straightforward, is that you've seen your residential customers, your people here have seen higher gas bills. It's pretty straightforward. It's simply due to the extended cold. We call it a good winter. If we look back compared to
Yes, of course you do.
winter 2016, we call winter November to March. If we look back 2016, 2017, this is a direct impact on the revenues generated by your gas department, gas sales. So we've had a very good winter thus far. I don't want any more snow. I was here the day that the 10 inches of snow in Marietta, where I live, started. Mm-hmm. And I left here thinking, well, it didn't look so bad. It took me almost 4 hours to get home, so no more snow. But I'll be glad to answer any other questions. The gas authority does manage the gas supply. It is a very active management process. Our staff at our headquarters in Kennesaw, 7 days a week, are managing and forecasting. They do this twice a day, actually. They're looking at the city of Monroe's gas needs for tomorrow, the day after. We have full staff that actually does that. I do a lot of the work for the rates and produce those to send to your city administration and to your billing staff. We also do other things. We do an annual gas cost and revenue forecast, which is presented. And we try to very much work hard, and a lot of analytical work goes into aligning what your gas rates, what's charged in that gas rate, to what your forecasted gas costs are, the revenues you need, that your system needs to generate. So I'll be glad to answer any questions about your gas prices, just anything.
Any questions? Any comments? How many municipalities do you work with in the state?
I personally work with 19, and I've been with the Gas Authority for 15 years. There are 78 municipalities that are members of the Gas Authority. the majority are in Georgia. There are 2 in Florida, there's 7 in Alabama, and we actually have 1 in Pennsylvania and 1 in Tennessee. And we, for those people, mostly managing the gas supply. For our Georgia members, we have a very active staff and do a lot of FaceTime, I call it face-to-face, not FaceTime, but face-to-face relations, meetings, planning, some constant contact with a marketing group within our staff, and they're very active in working with your city on projects. And so
we're paying relatively the same amount for the gas, but the difference is in the standard utility fee charged by each municipality.
That's a very good point. Your residential monthly base charge for gas service is $12. Okay. By comparison, so in a year's time, that's $144. Now, I'm going to detour just a little bit. Those of us who live in Metro Atlanta, I live in Marietta, and are not on a municipal gas system and have natural gas at our home, it's through the Atlanta Gas Light System and the AGL marketers. My marketer is actually Walton EMC. They're a great group of folks, but the average residential base charges in a 1 year's time, and this information is posted on the PSC website, so I didn't just dig it out of thin air, for 2017 was $355. That's just the base charge, because the Atlanta Gas Light base charge fluctuates between probably $27, $28 in the warmer months to as high as $35, $36 in the cold months. That's where a lot of the comparative differences are. You see a lot of marketing campaigns and radio ads, and people get stuff in the mail. Those are marketers. And if you're looking at just the price per therm, it's not an apples to apples comparison. We look at 12-month cost to the residential customer based on average usages. And just by the way, we have the data. We do this. This is part of my job. I track that information. And the city of Monroe is very favorable as compared to the AGO marketers, and very favorable and competitive with the other municipals in North Georgia.
So our base charge better than half of what AGL is charging.
Yes, that's about right. It's a good deal. I would trade my gas bill any day with.
I'm not, but thank you.
With anybody that's on the Monroe system.
Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you. Thank you for coming out and explaining that.
Thank y'all for having me.
Yes, sir. Moving on to committee information, finance, Mr. Bradley, Mr. Larry Bradley.
Mr. Mayor, we do have some items on there. We've got some renewals we need to approve, and I am happy to say on our health insurance side of things, you hear a lot of publicity the last couple of years about everybody's rates going through the roof on the health insurance, and I know that the city of Monroe's been able to not experience that over the past, and I'm confident we won't have to go through these high rates again for this new year coming up. In reading all this material, we do have some people with us tonight. Matt Bidwell is here with us from MSI Benefits to talk about our health insurance and dental, et cetera. And then Bob Seville's here to also talk with us, afterwards about property and casualty insurance. But I'm going to ask Logan right now to give us an intro into what we're looking at, and then let those guys talk.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. So MSI is new to us for this coming plan year. Matt Bidwell's done a great job. We've been back and forth every day along with Marcia Jackson back there, really doing our homework on our renewal rates. And I think we have a pretty good renewal. I'm going to ask Mr. Bidwell to come up and present some of what is already in your packet, but to go over some of these details and answer any questions you may have on our renewals for the upcoming year.
Thank y'all for having me here today.
Thank you for coming.
Y'all may have something in your packet similar to this. And I'd like to start off with a summary at the very beginning. I always like to know what's going to cost me before I talk about the details. I tend to listen better. We try to keep this a very simple sheet. And just to orientate you, the first number on the top left, the $2,072,179, That is your current expenditure for healthcare for the current policy year. And you go across the very top line, you'll see $466,398. Those are the employee contributions toward the cost of the health insurance plan. And then the city net annual cost is the $1,605,781. And so we like to start off showing you where you're currently at in terms of your total net expenditure. The renewal we received, you can see the renewal number underneath your current. And we're going to make some suggestions on the employee contributions. You'll see $454,220 plugged in for employee contributions. And you go over to the far right, which I think is a number I always want to know. What am I talking about? Is that if we continue our current insurance plan, you're going to see an annual increase of approximately $86,189 if we continue as we're currently doing. We did go out to market. We shopped the insurance quite extensively, and what we're recommending is to make a change to a company called Meritain. It is a third-party administrator, which is wholly owned by Aetna. So we would actually end up with not a Cigna provider network, but an Aetna network. Meritain, when they did the review, they have actually 3 different pharmacy benefit managers that they ran your all's pharmacy claims through. They've got the utilization management is actually in-house. It's not outsourced. And their numbers that they came back with, they actually changed this morning, and we knew they would. There are certain rules these reinsurers abide by, and whenever they receive competing proposals, they actually received a proposal request from both Meritain and from Covenant. They only issue one proposal. And the proposal that came in from Covenant was using a Cigna network. The proposal that came in from Meritain was obviously using the Aetna network. And once we sent Meritain a letter of expectation that we were recommending them over the Cigna network, once that was done, then they actually adjusted their claims to adjust how they felt Cigna versus Aetna would pay, and they literally lowered those claim expectations 3%. These numbers here that you see don't reflect that. So the $2,082,859 is actually going to come down by about $60,000. And what that reflects is that they feel, these reinsurers feel, that when you run those claims through those doctors and the hospitals that we're using, it's going to pay them, less money, only because the contracts that Aetna has have deeper discounts than what Cigna had in this particular market. And all your current plans have a $50,000 specific deductible. And what that means is that the first $50,000 on any one individual is actually paid by the city. If it goes above that, then it's actually paid by a reinsurer. We're recommending that we change to a $60,000 specific, and it'll be clear when I get to the detail page on the next page as to why. But under the option, 60,000 specific stop loss is what the SSL stands for. That new expected claims and fixed number is going to be $2,020,280. When you subtract the employee contributions, you're ending up with a net cost of $1,566,060, and that's a reduction of almost $40,000 versus an increase of about $86,000. And that's why we're making that recommendation. And I'm going to go into more on the details on the next page, but that was kind of a broad overview as to why we're recommending what we're doing. The dental plan is currently with Concordia. We were informed and aware of the fact that there's been a number of issues with the dental plan in terms of network access. And so after talking to local providers, talking to staff, we are recommending Delta. Delta it was the dental plan that was in here prior to April of last year. Talking with dentists that city employees do use, There was a strong relief on their part that they would like to see us go back to Delta. Delta's basically given us a rate that's about 0.5% below where your current plan is, and they're giving us a 2-year rate guarantee. So we're making the recommendation to change back to Delta. Under your basic life insurance, there's no increase in the actual cost of the life insurance, but we are asking to make a change where the city would now contribute to the cost of the basic dependent life. Right now, the city currently has approximately 80 some odd employees who receive basic dependent life. Some of them pay for it, some of them get it free, and if you don't have it, you're not eligible to even get it because it's part of a prior grandfathered arrangement from a number of years ago. The amount of dependent life under that program is $2,500, and technically, when you start looking at what an employer can do on a tax-free basis for their employees, they're limited to buying or to providing for any employee at no cost up to $2,000 worth of life insurance on a dependent. And we're currently right now giving $2,500, which means we really should be doing an imputed income, which if you end up doing that, it's actually going to cost more than the actual what you're paying for. So what we're recommending is for the city just to change to an amount that is allowable with no taxable implications, go to a flat $2,000, and we would recommend that you just provide it to any employee who's covering, who has a dependent, really. If they have a dependent, we just recommend you provide it. And if indeed you do that, you'd see approximately about a $526 annual increase in the cost of the insurance. It would greatly ease the administrative burden of trying to keep up with who should be paying for it, who shouldn't pay for it, and who can't even get it. So we're asking that really more from an administrative standpoint than from any other standpoint. And then lastly, on my cover sheet, y'all currently have voluntary vision. The city does not contribute to the cost of it. We did again review the market. The current standard plan, the employees are paying approximately $18,000 for it. We went down the network. The networks were identical. We went down 20 providers in each network, and it was the same 20 providers. So we think that we've got pretty much a same network of providers, and it would save the employees about $5,000 a year on the cost of their vision insurance. And that's going to be shown. I'll give you the actual details on the final page. And so this is just a general quick summary. I'm going to run through some quick details, and I'll give you a chance to ask questions if I may, please.
Yes, sir.
On page 3, this is the detailing on the medical options. You'll see the administrative fixed costs are on top, but and then you've got the cost of the insurance coming down the page, what the maximum claim number is. But what I really want to point out to you is if you go to the far right column and you come down to where it's yellowed, it's toward the bottom of the page, and I'm going to risk doing this. I'm going to put my finger on it. You're going to see a number that's $397,063. That there is your total fixed cost with this year's renewal. That's what you're paying for administrative fees and for your reinsurance. Those are costs that are going to happen if you have no claims at all. If you go across the page, you all are currently paying $483,000 on pure fixed cost. That was going to go to $515,000. And if we keep the $50,000 specific stop loss insurance, that number would go to $452,000. By us changing the stop loss from $50,000 to $60,000, we're saving almost $56,000 in premiums. And what that means is that we would have to have more than 5 people hit a $50,000 claim for us to be in what I would call, hey, that was a bad bet, we shouldn't have done that. And this current year, we're going to have 3 people hit it. I believe the year before it was 3. So we think that it's worth taking the $55,000 in premium savings to put ourselves on exposure for $10,000 on a claim. It just makes sense. And so what I'm basically saying, I think I would buy less insurance and pick up a little bit more risk because I'm saving $55,000 and I'd have to have 6 stop loss claims to be in the negative. So we think that's a good trade-off. And just a point on this, we did go to a number of carriers getting proposals, and Blue Cross and Blue Shield, their reinsurance came in expensive. It was not a competitive proposal for them, but the minimum stop loss deductible they would show on a group this size was $100,000. $100,000. So we think going to 60 is still a very nominal number. I'd like to go to page 4, please. This may take a little bit of time. I apologize. We are asking to make some changes on the employees' contributions this year. Currently, your contributions are based upon your ability, your participation in the county's wellness program. There's approximately 6 different contributions for each category, and there's 5 categories. So from a payroll standpoint, we have almost 30 different options that somebody might be paying for their insurance. And the overwhelming bulk of those options, most of your employees are really in just 2 basic categories. They cover about 85% of everybody. So what we're asking to do is we're asking to simplify the contribution scheme. One, again, it's going to assist with the administration of your plan. And we think also, too, that it's going to drive home a point in the fact that we do want you to participate in our wellness program, but here's what I mean when I say drive home a point. Currently, if I'm an individual and I'm not participating in the wellness plan, if I just don't show up, I could pay $139 a pay period for my insurance. We feel that $42.16 is still driving home that point in terms of getting that employee to participate. Currently, if I want to cover my spouse, and my spouse doesn't participate in the wellness plan, I'm buying family coverage. You add $140 plus $460, that's almost $600 to cover an employee and spouse, whereas here we think $280, again, drives home the point. Coming down, we've set 5 parameters that we'd like employees to participate in and show results. It's going to be in our BMI, which I say shows that you're not tall enough for your weight, your waist circumference, your high density cholesterol, your A1C, which is a function of your blood sugars, and your blood pressure. Those are the 5 items that are being measured. If employees either hit the guideline or show an improvement in that guideline from the previous year, if they hit 3 of the 5, then they qualify for wellness. So we want people to have a goals and be able to fit it. Their spouse also must hit 3 out of the 5 goals. So if my wife and I are both participating, both of us are hitting 3 of the 5 goals, then I'm coming over, and I'm on slide 4, you can see employee and family coverage would be $172 per pay period. If I'm covering just myself and my spouse, it's $146. If I'm a single adult, I'm taking just single coverage, it's $1153 for wellness. If I'm covering just my children and I'm 3 out of the 5 on the wellness, it's $146. If, for whatever reason, the employee or the spouse, if one of them does not meet the 3 out of 5 criteria, then the employee and spouse contribution would go from $146 to $194. If I'm doing family, it'd go from $172 to $226. And then conversely, on family coverage, if neither of us hit the goal, we're going to go from the $172 to $279 a pay period, and for the spouse from $146 to $242. So we think that that's a lot of money in order not to be in participation, but we also think it's at a reasonable level. We want people to strive to do well. These wellness deductions are 5% lower than what they were for 2017. The Not included in these numbers is if an employee and/or their spouse test positive for nicotine, there's an additional $20 per pay period surcharge. It could be for both of them. If both employee and spouse smoke, it'd be an additional $40 per pay period. And then finally, on the payroll deductions, we're putting forth a very intensive encouragement. We want people who have elevated numbers, their numbers aren't where they need to be, we want them to participate in the coaching. So whether that's through going down to the clinic or talking to the health coach, we want them to take the calls and talk to the coaches. If indeed an employee is deemed not compliant with the coaching, then they will not be able to participate in the wellness deductions next year. So we're telling employees now in 2018, please take those calls. Please, talk to the nurse when they call you. And if they don't, then what we're asking is that in 2019, that employees who failed to participate in coaching, that they will not be eligible for any of the wellness discounts at that time. So that was a lot to get out, but I thought it was important. It was an important page. Page 5 is basically the dental options. There's really very little change. The employees will see a slight decrease in their cost. And page 6, we show the basic life. There are approximately 86 people with dependent life. And on page 7, I've got the voluntary vision deductions. We've got 69 employees who are paying $3.91 for vision. It'll drop to $2.66. The family coverage is $11.34. We'll go to $9.48. And we do recommend that you make that change. So I'm going to be quiet and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bidwell.
Thank you, Matt.
Anybody on the committee have any questions, Mr. Bidwell?
On the mandatory coaching, is that even if the employee meets the wellness goals in the beginning, he still has to go for the coaching? I didn't understand.
I hate to, I wish we had somebody here from that area. I'd like to answer that question, but I don't think I can. If I'm using just intuitive, I'm going to admit something to you. I'm actually a registered nurse too, and they should be coached, but anyway. So I'm a little biased. I really can't answer that question, maybe.
No, sir. If you meet the wellness requirements of 3 out of 5 up front, we will not require that coaching right away.
Okay.
So it's those who fall into the category of they need to be coached. We're going to put them on that program for the rest of the year, and of course that will go into eligibility for 2019 wellness, as Matt stated earlier. So we don't want to put everybody on this coaching plan right away if you've met wellness requirements, is what we're trying to get at.
Well, these are hard to evaluate, and the numbers are the easier part. Those that have looked at it, do you feel that it is comparable for the employee and the coverage for the employee is very comparable with what they have now?
I believe it is. We've looked at the network providers, obviously, which was a big issue this last time around, and I think we've corrected a lot of that. I know Matt has reached out to a lot of them personally to make sure they're covered in network. So I believe this Aetna option is a good one to go with going forward.
Just to follow that question, though, I know the wellness thing's changing on how much you've got to pay or not pay depending upon your 3 out of 5, et cetera. Mm-hmm. For the typical employee, what happens to their rates that they're going to have to pay?
5% decrease.
5% decrease over what they're paying this year?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Bill, we appreciate you being with us tonight. We appreciate the work you put into this
Thank y'all so much for having me.
package that
We appreciate y'all.
So I'm gonna ask the committee now if there's a motion to present this, renewal proposal to the full council next week.
Insurance next, yeah. Bob Seville.
I make with the motion that we accept the, this renewal as presented by MSI Benefits Group.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Then I'm gonna second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so Mayor will present this next week to the full council for approval.
Great, thank you.
And now we have the property and casualty insurance renewal.
More good news on the insurance front, thanks to Bob Seville, for our property and casualty insurance renewal. I'll let him present a little bit of what we've been working on over the past couple months.
Yeah, we've been working hard on it. You know, first I'd like to congratulate you on selecting MSI. And Matt Lee, pretty good.
Yeah, he bolted.
And I had a great line for him. But now I can say it without, that it doesn't have any recourse. But I've seen Matt around for, you can see we're both close to the same age, and I've seen him work with different cities and counties all up and down 85. And he just does a fantastic job. And those are a lot of numbers. I couldn't even follow them all. But you should be very pleased with what he's doing. And I think he's moving things around like they need to be moved, and the 60,000 is a good number. But y'all may remember over the years, I'm a big loss control guy, and I'm even bigger on wellness. But I don't think wellness is a solution if it's not reachable. And Logan and I were talking last week, was it, that, you know, y'all have adjusted it some so it's more reachable, and the employee doesn't just give up. And that's what we're after. We're after, you know, it's good to save money, but at the end of the day, it's good to save an employee. And so I'm just real proud of the steps y'all are taking with this.
Thank you.
So the property and casualty insurance has had the folks back here in the back have done a great job of maintaining a great loss history for many years. And the city attorney's done, I mean, we spend a lot of time with Debbie on the phone and making sure that the claims are addressed before they get out of hand or before they even become a claim. So, you know, the best loss is the loss that never happens. That's right. And so that's why we have good news, and that's why I'm going to go through this in a little bit more depth, but I'll try to make it brief. But that's why our insurance has stayed flat or decreased over the last 5 years. And there's not many cities that can say that. So I'm going to go through this sheet right here that you have in front of you, and I'll hit on the high points in our general liability. Our gas man left too, but we insure him, and we make sure that we have a safe gas system, and our unaccounted for is a low number, and all those are good numbers right now, and the electric side's good. So we've had a good experience on all our utilities, and utilities are really what drive the general liability. If you think about it, that's the largest part of it. So there's not much change in that area. You can see the premium bumped up just a tad, and that's budget-based. We net the expenditures out, come up with a formula that so that everything's covered unless it's excluded. So we don't have to make a lot of phone calls to figure that out. The automobile, you'll see, went up a little bit, and part of that is that we have more units. We have 3 more units. But we also traded out, Debbie, what, in about 10 units this year, and upgraded the fleet a little bit, so that increased the cost some. And as automobile as a whole in the state of Georgia, but really in the nation, is taking a hit. All the carriers are losing money on automobile. So what you see them doing most of the time is they'll move more premium into that auto section so that it impacts the loss ratio and drives that loss ratio down a little bit, and move it from other areas that aren't quite as sensitive. So that's what we have on the autos. The crime really hasn't changed much. We put a blanket bond on there that covers everybody in the city, and that's been then we have separate bonds on city administrator and clerk. Then the next section, the property, deserves a little bit of discussion. If you look on the left-hand side in the white column, you'll see we put $11,000 over there for the new food line and the shopping center that we just bought, that we're going to renovate the food line for the police department. And that facility, you'll also see, has much higher value than what you paid for it. So we had how long did we talk? We talked about that for a while, but when you buy a building like that, you insure it at replacement cost. So you have to adjust the value so the value equals the replacement cost of the building. So that's why that value's a little bit higher. And we could have taken it down lower, but it would have put it on actual cash value, which is a depreciated cost, and you would get a fraction of what the true value of the building is. So we want to make sure if something happens to that building, we have the money to rebuild it. So we annualized that number. We put a footnote at the bottom. We really paid $3,000 and some change for the short-term cost of that, and we annualized that $11,000 so you could have apples to apples when you compared the two columns. So if you look at the property, the $74,000 plus the 11 is a little bit higher than the $79,000 that we have this year. So the property rate actually went down. Any questions yet? Okay. No change in the equipment, inland marine. We changed some things out here and there, but generally that doesn't have a lot of impact. I've got to give a shout to the chief over here. The main line that went down was the law enforcement. So it went from 54 to 50,000, and I know he's worked hard to maintain the claims and control those. So hard that I get some calls every now and then about 9 or 10 o'clock at night on his cell phone, talking about a claim or something that happened, and we have a conversation, and then I explained to my wife who that was calling. I said it was the police chief, and she says, "What'd you do?" But she's getting used to that. And public official liability and employment practices liability is probably one of the most active lines in the industry right now. And as you can imagine, you see a lot of employment claims that come along. Public official side is what covers all the actions that y'all make, but not just y'all, but the employees, anything an employee would do. It extends to volunteers. It's very broad coverage. The umbrella is the next line, and the umbrella sits over the public official liability, all the casualty lines. Okay. Then we have some. The one thing I wanted to hit on was the cyber liability. We've had, y'all had cyber liability before it was cool. Everybody is starting, I would say 50% of the cities still don't have it right now. We've had cyber liability for 5 years. And I can tell you that we had a county that had a ransomware claim this year, and it was $30,000. You call the FBI says pay the $30,000. And then you have to do all your investigation and forensics and so forth. That claim amounted to about $110,000 by the time it was over. We had a utility that was a water utility. They had $35,000 ransomware claim. And so we've had this discussion last week, and we feel very comfortable with the firewalls and the things the city's done to, I think y'all get attacked every night, don't you?
Pretty much.
And it's just, y'all don't even realize, none of us do, what's going on all the time that we're not even aware of. I insure some colleges, and these colleges get hit by Russia and China 20, 30 times a night. And we have to put in all the protections that, far above what my knowledge level, but it's to be commended that you hadn't had any problems with all the utilities and so forth. And then the last thing is the airport. And we did a little experiment on the fuel truck, and the experiment's over, and the fuel truck has gone home. So we took that off of there, and you'll see that's zeroed out right there. So after all's said and done, it went down about $3,000. And Chris has mentioned the loss control plan that we're implementing right now. He called me up one day and named off all the things he wanted. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, we have a plan like that that almost matches what you just described. And I think, I won't go into it in a lot of detail, because you sort of described it, but the nice thing about, it's an online, internet-based plan, and the courses are only 30 minutes long. I don't know about y'all, I don't last more than 30 minutes. And you got to hold the folks' attention. And I've written safety plans and taught loss control, and you have about 20 minutes there at the very most to get your message across. And then you lose me. and I'm sure I'm losing the folks I'm talking to. So our goal here is that these courses are specifically designed so we can do one department. Eventually, these courses will have continuing ed and accreditation credits, and so that'll save us money. And the other good thing I like about this loss control, when you think about it, you usually have to send somebody off for half a day, and you lose half a day's man hours. These can be done in an hour. They can be done right here in our training facility. Is that where you're thinking of doing it? And they can come in at 8 o'clock, and by 9 o'clock, probably 10 o'clock, they're back in the field. So to me, the less downtime, the better. So I'm excited about that. It's going to take a lot of work, but he's promised me it's going to happen. What questions we have?
Any questions from Mr. Swift? No questions? We appreciate you being here, and appreciate that premium at the bottom line being decreased.
It's a good one.
It's really. So I'm going to ask the members of the committee, do we have a motion to recommend this renewal to the full council?
Motion to recommend.
Okay, have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passed. Mr. Mayor, we'll recommend that to the full council, and that's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Thank you for coming, Mr. Sewell. Appreciate your sticking with it. Next, we have the Airport Committee, Mr. Garrett.
Chris.
All right, should be fairly short and sweet. Just asking for approval tonight for the final airport layout plan that's been designed and created by Barge, Wagner, Sumner Cannon. It was originally approved under contract back in April of 2016. It was about an $87,000, $88,000 project, of which out of pocket cost the city about $4,400. And they have finally completed it, had the stamp of approval by the DOT, and we just need final approval to essentially have the mayor sign, submit it back to the DOT for their signature, and that becomes our basic blueprint for the airport and for the development going forward. So, just need the approval tonight.
Thank you.
We make a motion that we ask for somebody to motion for approval for next week.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Been motion and second, we'll put it on next week agenda. Anything else we have?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Public Works, David Dickinson.
We don't have anything.
Quick and painless.
Absolutely.
Utilities, Mr. Little.
Thank you, Mayor. First item is the approval of a change of our IP transport. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, sir. I'll try to keep this as short as possible, but it's a fairly technical deal. He was, the insurance fellow was right. We get attacked every night, multiple times, and that's part of why we're here today in a later item that will help protect us even more. First one that we have here is the changes to our IP backhaul, and I'll make a very brief explanation of how our IP, which is our internet traffic, leaves Monroe and gets out to the world. We have two fiber routes that leave Monroe. One goes through Athens via Watkinsville. One goes out through Covington via Loganville. These routes are provided by Georgia Public Web. Georgia Public Web was at one time MEAG Telecom. MEAG Telecom was viewed by the Public Service Commission to not be the thing to do, so they spun it off and became Georgia Public Web. They have a fiber network that spans Jacksonville to Chattanooga. Hits about 27 to 28 of the cities. We are not a member, but we were in a perfect location. They serve all the Board of Regents. All the big colleges in the state of Georgia are served by Georgia Public Web, and we were halfway between Covington and Athens. So we made a route for them, and that put us on their Ring 6. So the way it's done now is we have those two individual links, and they are 4 gig apiece. That allows us, up until recently, the capacity to fail over if one ring falls, or one link falls, we could fail over to the other. Since about the first of the year, we've been going over 5 gig every night. So we would, if we did one side failed, we would have issues. Now, we have talked with Georgia Public Web, we can increase those temporarily. Over the last year, we had worked with the Georgia Public Web, or GPW, to have a different type of access. We wanted to increase our links to 10 gig. We wanted to create another access point behind our water plant at a building called the Head Inn. That would give us true redundancy. Well, prior leadership at Georgia Public Web on their board and as their CEO just didn't see that. They didn't see that as part of their role. They wanted us to pay for the access point, and they really didn't want to be the edge company. And by the edge company, I mean where you grab the internet. So we worked that route, and in December, we were prepared to bring to you to build that network. Well, in late November, Georgia Public Web changed their tune. They had a new CEO who'd been on staff about 6 months, a fairly new board, and that board charged them with working closer with the cities, getting the data, the edge, further out to the city. So the first two they're trying this with are us and Thomasville. So we have two options. We can go back to our original option, which would be to build a point of presence at 55 Marietta. We're already at 56 Marietta. These are just buildings on Marietta Street in downtown Atlanta that have data centers. That's where you meet up with your internet provider or your other carriers. We carry Hitachi to 56 Marietta Street and hand them over to Time Warner, who takes them to Michigan. We met with a company that was looking at the area today. We can carry them back to their home office, which is a big plus on the economic development side. Or, option two, we can move the edge out to here, to 420 North Broad Street, and here at the office, increase our data links instead of 2 10 gig to 4 10 gig links, totally separated, now they'll be connected to each other, but if one fails, if any one of those two down here fail, we still have the Head Inn. This building is still connected to the Head Inn on a ring. So if any of those two things fail, we're still there. Double our IP capacity, or double our IP capacity to Cogent and or level 3. Then we don't have the capacity carrying to have a direct link to Google or Netflix. You have to have a certain amount of traffic before they'll give you a direct link. Georgia Public Web does. They have those direct links. That dumps a lot of our traffic off before it goes onto the internet. not taking our IP traffic down, not taking up that capacity, going straight to Google, straight to Netflix. Helps out on any kind of buffering. That direct link is there. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Also, it cuts down on our capital costs. The next item up are some Cisco Edge routers. They're around $35,000 a piece. We had expected to have to buy 4. This allows us to only buy 2. I'm very, very happy with Georgia Public Web Service. I'm very, very happy that they brought this opportunity to us. This will cut down our budgeted internet cost unless we see a capacity need. If we see more capacity, we'll have money built already into the budget to just up that capacity. I'm trying to use a different word, but it stuck with capacity. I'll take any question. I know this is a technical deal. I sent this out to y'all a week or so ago, but we're very excited about it as a IT staff or the internet staff.
Will we still go through Georgia Public Web to 5556 Marietta?
Yes, sir. What is, I
Will
think
we
is,
maintain our physical presence at 56 Marietta?
they will allow us to have those, and that's one of the things that bothered us. That if we did that, we wouldn't have that opportunity to interconnect with other carriers. If we had another industry that moved here, we wouldn't be flexible enough to do what we needed for them. They agree to let us have the interconnects through their system, so we can build those interconnects.
That carrying us there anyway now.
They're already carrying us there. One of the things that drove this, they had a big system upgrade. And there's no easy way to explain this, but they use dense wave division multiplexing now, which basically puts different colored lights on each fiber. So their capacity on those fibers went from around 12 channels or 12 lights to 64. So they have a much larger capacity on the network. Now they lease these fibers, some of these fibers from us, from the Newton County line all the way over to the Publix in Watkinsville. So some of those are our lines, and we maintain them for 20 years for the cost of building that link into Athens. So they lease a lot of fiber, we lease a lot of fiber, but this is the best way for us to get to Atlanta. Now, Mr. Bradley had asked a question. I said, so had Logan, are these our only connections to Atlanta? Yes, right now they are. We do have Charter and Comcast both in the basement, which are options to get out, very expensive options at this point. We are looking at several different providers in the area that we could build to over the next couple of years, and that would give us another route out. I really want to get to the Ashburn, Virginia data center. It's what the CIA uses. It's the most protected data center in the nation. And if 55 and or 56 have a problem, I want another option. So we're working those options out, and that'll be for a future move.
Any other questions? Brian? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, since I'm sure you understood all the technical side of that, I won't try to get into it now. What I heard was more capacity, better redundancy at lower cost. So with that in mind, I'll make the motion that we approve this change.
Motion by Mr. Bradley,
Second.
second by Mr. Adcock. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
We recommend that change to council. Next item, Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Cisco router, edge router?
Yes, sir. These are two Cisco ASR 9001 edge routers. These routers will sit here in this office and here up at the head end, and they will give us access to the internet. They are for the lack of a better term, the traffic cops. When you ask for Google, those two will talk together and figure out where you need to go and send you the shortest route. They will talk with the switchgear at 56 and 55 Marietta Street and send that where it needs to go. They will also allow us to have much better security. We are asking for inside these quotes that we receive, we ask for basically Cisco support. So we have access to Cisco engineers pretty much anytime we want to during the life of the Cisco support, which is huge. I mean, Logan can speak to that at his prior job. That can be very expensive, and it has been very expensive for us in the past. So there's a budget allocation of $225,000 for this redundancy project for this year, and we're asking for $69,584. Megahertz was the low bid.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the purchase of the 2 Cisco Edge routers.
Motion by Mr. Adcox, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Larry Bradley. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? We recommend that purchase to full council next week.
Thank you again.
I want to clear up our first motion. There are 2 options listed, and it's for option number 2.
Yes, sir.
On the first motion. All right, Mr. Thompson, your next item.
This we discussed at our capital project. This is a fiber blower. This blows microfibers and larger fibers into ductwork. We've looked at several different models. We were looking for that niche model that fit what we do. We don't shoot lines 16,000, 17,000 feet at a time. We shoot at 3,000, 4,000 feet. But we wanted one big enough that could shoot into 1.25-inch pipe. And there were very few manufacturers that had that type of product. We ended up going to Sherman and Riley. They're out of Chattanooga. I went and looked at their device in use. It looks great. It does exactly what we want to do. It's under the budgeted, the line item for that budget. Greenlee was the low bid for this product, and it comes with 4 sets of dies, which allow you to do 4 different sizes of fiber and micro duct and regular duct. It also comes with a cooler. One of the big things they say in the South that an air cooler. One of the big things in the South that you run into is when you're running an air compressor, is that air compressor, the air gets hot, and it causes the pipe on the inside to get sticky and sticks up your fiber along the route. So we added the air cooler on there, and the requested expense is $36,665.50.
Basically, what you're talking about here is to use this to install fiber in already placed conduit.
Yes. Well, conduit that we will be placing.
And that gets the fiber through the conduit.
It is amazing, if any of y'all are in the office at any one time you catch me, the size, what has happened in fiber in the past 3 or 4 years. We're talking about, at the smallest, a 10-millimeter duct that you can insert and blow a 144 count fiber up to 4,000 feet at a time. It's amazing how 144 count fiber was as big around as this microphone 10 years ago. And now you can get it in sizes about the size of that. I mean, it's amazing.
Any
So now
questions?
you have to purchase the ductwork for this to go through?
We already have some for the project downtown that we're going to be putting that in. And as we move forward, yes, we'll be buying some duct to put in. But this is mainly to start the duct finally came in undamaged this time. The last time they sent us our duct, it had a forklift through the middle of it, so we had to send it back. The new projects that y'all have approved for the residential projects, we will not be putting coax in. We will only be putting fiber in those. And so we'll be putting ductwork in those as we move forward and just blow it straight in.
How long will one of these blowers last?
I would say if Sherman and Riley, we've got a lot of pulling gear that we use on the electric side from Sherman and Riley. I'd say 15, 20 years. I mean, you've got some wear items, of course. The tracks has these little tracks that squeeze down on the fiber and they run and they're rubber. Mm-hmm. So those are wear items, but these are heavy aluminum. It's a heavy device.
So it's blowing it through something that wide for 12 football fields?
It can. We get it up and running if y'all so approve it, and we get it up and running. I'll get y'all, any of y'all that want to come out and watch it.
It's pretty impressive.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the purchase of the fiber blower from Greenlee at a cost of $36,665.50.
Motion from Mr. Bradley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Adcock. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will recommend that to full council. Another item, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you.
FTTX project.
This is, I believe, the last one I have. We started polling or looking at some of our customers downtown in the fiber to the X or the fiber to the premise project. And one of the requests that we kept talking to some of them, they wanted gig downtown. They wanted 500 megabits. They wanted, whatever, faster. And the gig downtown or the gig community is a great marketing slogan for our downtown development authority. So we've got it built into the fiber to the X electronics to allow any customer to use any of our existing internet packages. If a customer is happy with what they have, we can build that straight in there and bill them exactly like they are. But we wanted, as we start deploying this, we wanted to be able to have a product for that gig space, so we had to come up with a price. We looked at the market. There's really nobody in our market doing it. Comcast does it in downtown Atlanta in small pockets. Google is doing it in Nashville. Some of the other bigger carriers, Verizon's doing it up in New York. But we had to have it, by what I mean here with non-SLA, you see that. We have customers that are SLA, George Walton Academy, the hospital, Hitachi, Verizon, Sprint, even in a couple of cases. What an SLA is a service level agreement. It ties me to that agreement. I've got to give them priority on the network over anyone else. Now, they pay for that priority. They pay a much higher rate than what you see right here. But they need, especially the hospital needs 99999 because they could be doing some remote teaching or some remote surgery or some remote viewing of some x-rays for somebody that's badly injured. So they pay for that service. What we tried to do is build a product that can work with a customer downtown. And I'll just bring the one up that comes to mind, and it's the photography place downtown. They need high-speed uploads occasionally. And by occasionally, I mean whenever she wants to send out a large packet, say a wedding or whatever she needs to send out, she needs it right then. But she doesn't need it like the hospital needs it. She doesn't need it like the George Walton needs it or like Verizon or Hitachi needs it. They're not going to be utilizing that speed at that amount of time. So it needs to cost less. It needs to be a less cost item. So we priced the 1 gigabit bidirectional non-SLA at $299 and the 500 megabit, I should have put bidirectional there too, non-SLA at $199. We may come back to you in the next few months as we see our customers and say we need 100 megabit or we need 150 megabit. I just don't know what the market is needed right there. And as we move forward, we'll find out. We have 100 megabit by a lower number upload on our cable modem package, so we can give that to them. But somebody might want that 100 or 125 by 125, and that is a package we can certainly provide. We just have to learn how to price it.
How does this pricing compare with the, let's just say, 1 gigabit SLA?
Oh, a 1 gigabit SLA is over $2,000.
Okay.
Yep. Ask Ms. Crossy if she could give us a thought as to if we offer this 1 gigabyte city, 1 gigabyte downtown, what does that do, number one, to our marketing effort to bring businesses in? Number two, how do you think it'll affect existing businesses? Please.
I'm honestly not sure about current businesses who would utilize this, but I can speak to the marketing. So one of the biggest gig cities that has used it in marketing is Chattanooga. And the way they've used it is to kind of put out there, we are interested in attracting technology careers. We're interested in larger companies, even small startups that need this kind of upload and download speed. So for us, it sets us apart to say, no, we want to attract this demographic of businesses and small, and not even large industry, because they know we have it. This is more small tech startups, small tech companies, so a lot of entrepreneurs that are doing things that are on computers all the time. That's gonna, and even some co-working and incubators for those kinds of businesses. It puts us marketing-wise where we can go after those and attract them. So I love it. I think it's a great idea. We've been talking about it for a while.
Thank you.
Mr. Bradley, I just say, just a random comment, I have 3 businesses in downtown, and all 3 of them would buy the gig. It's that valuable for our businesses.
Is it, do you think this is a bargain price?
No.
Or is it?
I think some people have underpriced it, even lower than that, to the Chattanooga's one. I mean, I can't remember their exact deal, but it's $100 and some odd. We, right now, do not have the capacity to have 500 customers on that. But if what y'all approve tonight will allow that, we can move forward. I think it is a good price. I think it is a great price since you can't get it anywhere locally anyway. You're not going to go get this type of product at that price anywhere east of Atlanta. Athens maybe in the future, but that's a wonderful price. I mean, as a business owner, Paul, I mean, what do you think?
I think it's a great price.
Well, I mean, will this product deter people that maybe are borderline and would want to purchase
No, the
the
SLA.
product that we have, SLA?
This is a shared product, so there's a couple hundred people sharing a 10 gig pipe. So 95, 96% of the time, you're going to get that gig speed. At times, you might be a little lower than that. That SLA guy, that SLA customer, let's just look at the school, George Walton, for instance. They've got how many hundreds of kids they've got to have it. They've got to have that capacity all the time. Sprint and Verizon at the cell tower, it was a flat line. They're using it all day long, every day. They're using that capacity a lot more than Paul's going to use it. The great thing about this is, especially in the downtown area, you got to think, when do our residential customers use the internet? When do you think? It's 6 o'clock till 2 o'clock in the morning. You'll see our peak. These business customers are going to start using it during the day. That capacity is available to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So spreading this way, spreading this cost around and spreading this load around to different areas and giving the businesses an opportunity to have a product that helps their business is great all the way around.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to adopt this pricing schedule?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to adopt the standard non-SLA fiber pricing as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Adcock and second by Mr. Bradley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We
Thank y'all.
recommend that to council. Thank you, Mayor. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Appreciate your work on that. Next will be at Public Safety, Mr. Adcock.
Thank you, Mayor. We don't have anything on the agenda this evening.
I think we'll be talking about some public safety items in just a couple minutes. Planning and Code, Mr. Bradley, Mr. Larry Bradley.
Not be here tonight, but there was one item on the agenda, because we've had a lot of discussion recently concerning R1A zoning, and so we've asked the staff to look at some things. I'm going to ask Logan if he just ought to give us a brief recap of where we stand on that now.
Yeah, just real quickly, and Pat, feel free to chime in at any time. We had a special planning and code meeting a couple weeks ago where we discussed R1A zoning and its future uses in the city and how it was intended to be used. Is not exactly how it's been used right now. So R1A was intended to be more of an infill development kind of zoning category. And lately, we've seen some developments take advantage of the R1A that we have on the books by moving that to the periphery of the city. There's good and bad with that, but what we're going to do as staff, as directed by the Planning and Code Committee, is kind of hit pause on that for a little bit and go back and redraft an appropriate zoning category that would encompass the original intent of the R1A into something else that redefines it into our urban redevelopment boundaries, rather than creating a mechanism for what most of us would call sprawl. So that was the down and dirty of what we accomplished in that last meeting.
Good, thank you.
That down and dirty official language.
Yes, sir.
Anything else we need to act on that? Any comments, any questions? Economic Development, Mr. Ross Bradley.
We have one report from the Monroe Walton Center for the Arts. I don't know if that's Ms. Carla. Okay.
Hello, I'm Hope Reese. I'm the director of the Monroe Walton Center for the Arts, and thank you for inviting us here tonight.
Thank you for coming.
And thank you for your support. And may I start out with saying that you all are very smart people and very forward-thinking people. I hear it all the time at the center, how great it is that a community of our size has an art center at the level that we do, and that the support that we get from the city. I hear it from people from Watkinsville and Athens and, of course, Monroe, and from Grayson and Lawrenceville and Tequila. Hear it every single week, how great it is that we have this facility in our city. So thank you, because we would not, we have a enviable business model where we live on about 10 to 15% of the money that we take in. Most of the money that we take in goes right back out to our artists and to our instructors and to pay for supplies and all of that. Most of it goes right into the pockets of our artists and our instructors. So without the support of the city, we would not be here. So thank you very much. And I've seen the Art Center kind of as the frumpy maiden aunt of Monroe. I think we have maybe the second loveliest building next to the courthouse in the city. And we've kind of sat there and waited for the party to come to us, and now we're throwing our own party. Monroe is having a huge party. There's so much going on. The city is on fire. And I counted our classes. Just to update, I think y'all have this annual report in front of you, and a lot of these numbers are just way wrong now. I wrote this in December, toward the end of December, and I've written that I hope to have 6 creative workshops every month. That number is slightly wrong. We have 57 workshops and classes in February alone. So we're growing, we're serving the population. We're serving kids, we're serving adults, we're serving special needs populations as well. This is kind of a, if you build it, they will come kind of moment for us, because we had this unused space in the center, and we built out a classroom because we foresaw the need of having an accessible classroom, because all of our classrooms were either upstairs on our second floor or down in our basement. We didn't have an accessible classroom for handicapped people. We built this room without really a clear purpose, except just knowing that we were going to build ourselves into it, and we had a lot of volunteer help. We had some grant money, but the painting and a lot of the finish work was done all by volunteers. And within a couple of months, we had a special needs adult service agency approach us, and now we're offering classes to special needs adults, many of them physically handicapped as well. and we would not be able to serve them if it was not for that room. We also have toddlers in that room and older people that are having a hard time getting up our marble staircase in our building. So we're growing, we're doing well. We appreciate everything that the city does for us, the support that we get from the media and just the community at large. Y'all have this report in front of y'all. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Just thank you for the work that you're doing.
We appreciate it. We do appreciate it. Thank you all.
Ms. Bradley, anything else?
No, sir, I believe that concludes it.
Ms. Reese, thank you. Thank you for coming in, and thank you for the work you're doing. Up next, some items of discussion. Public hearings upcoming. Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first one on the agenda there is our variance request at, let me get the address here, I'm sorry. 206 North Midland Avenue. The applicant is looking to do basically the type of infill development that we want to change the R1A zoning classification to cover. They've taken a small parcel, which as it sits would allow for 3 lots conforming to R1A standards, which a business zoning would have to do. They want to request a variance of less than 10% on the lot size to allow for 4 units to be built there. I think it's justified in consideration of the shared access driveway that they have, and you can see that on the background report. And if you have any other questions about that, I'll be happy to answer them, or the applicant is here if you have anything specific for them.
Anybody have any questions?
What is the variance that they're actually asking for?
They're asking for a reduction in the lot size of less than 10% from 7,500 square feet to 6,880, I believe, is would be the average lot size. Anything else?
I think it sounds like a great plan and conforms to what we're trying to do there.
Yeah, it fits the direction that we've envisioned in the zoning ordinance and in discussions with the new planning and code committee and the council at large over actually a rather long period of time. It's just nice to see things like this finally coming to town. Moving on to the next one, we have a petition by Darrell Perry, who I don't believe is here tonight. And he wants to rezone and annex a property on Gene Bell. Oh, that's actually 2 parcels, but it'll be 1 property if developed. He wants to annex those. They're on Gene Bell Road. He wants to build a single-family residential subdivision. It fits the R1A classification that they're requesting, but they've suggested that they'd like to make it a 55 and older community, so we've added that as a recommended condition. We've got 1,650 square foot minimum house size, which R1A would normally allow 1,300, and no vinyl sidings except for soffits and fascia. And anyway, so we, since it fit the zoning classification, we're recommended for approval in the staff, but the Planning and Zoning Commission, actually they recommended for approval on this one as well. The previous one, they recommended against it, just to get that on the record. This is exactly the kind of R1A development where the category doesn't fit the project or the project doesn't fit the category, and you just kind of have to massage it around and condition it to death. And seeing as how people are using it as a mechanism to get higher yield based on conditions, we figured it'd be better to change the zoning category. Kind of just threw that in there going back to the R1A discussion. So anyways, this is the petition by them for annexation and rezone to R1A.
Did y'all recommend approval for that on Gene Bell Road?
On Gene Bell Road, we did recommend approval with the conditions as stipulated, just basically because it does conform as presented to the R1A classification. But again, that won't matter if you don't decide to annex it, or if it's a project that doesn't seem to fit the development pattern we're after.
This seems to be one that we do want to put on hold.
Well, ultimately, we have to decide on the annexation, so that's up to council to think about before the next meeting. And also something to consider is the topography, which was discussed before. It's a huge amount of floodplain back there. So you really need to look at the ingress, egress, and how that floodplain also cuts through several of those lots. That's something to consider, not just for now, but also maybe for the future, should those boundaries change. I don't know that we can make a decision based on future boundaries, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Have you saw the plan of the project on Jean Bell?
Yeah, it should be in the packet down below. If you scroll down, the very bottom page, if you scroll down and zoom out, that's the plan as presented. It's got a single road coming in. I think it's a total of 45 lots. Yeah, that's correct, 45 lots on a single kind of loop road.
So are they in a position to go around what Logan is saying as far as the floodplain?
Well, if you look at it, the dark dotted line on the southern end of the development is the floodplain limit, the FEMA floodplain line. And it crosses the back of a few lots, skirts a few others. I think the concern that anybody has brought up about the floodplain was environmental impact, which, they would obviously have to take into consideration in their development plans and meet any requirements that our development regulations cause them to have to meet. But that's one of the concerns that has been raised, is environmental impact of that floodplain. The reason this person wants to come into the city is because their property is adjacent to our sewer line that runs through that floodplain, and that would allow them to have this higher yield rather than having to build 1 unit per acre in the county. So it's basically a way to increase their yield on the property, is if they get in the city and can get onto sewer.
Is sewer already out there now?
Well, there's no sewer in the land, but the sewer line runs right along the creek line in that floodplain.
So they just could hook up?
Yeah, they'd have to make the improvements to tie
The
into it.
developer would have to do that, but like Patrick said, it would create a density change from what the county requires versus what the city requires. So that's just something that needs to be weighed.
And they're looking at 45 lots on a total of 27 acres, but really, how many usable acres do they have? 12?
It's close to that, yes. The only thing is that in our zoning ordinance even, it does require that we take the entire parcel into account as far as units per acre yield. You can set the unusable part aside as green space, as everybody does, and then you build all the houses on the part that's not in the floodplain, as long as you meet all the zoning requirements as far as dimensions go.
I understand that. Do you know the county on their 1 lot per acre, would they consider theirs the same way?
Would they consider it the same way in what
So would
regard?
they allow 27 lots here, or would they say you can fit 12?
Well, no, their consideration in the one unit per acre is because they would have to be on septic in the county. That's why the larger lot would be required. So that's kind of apples and oranges.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other questions?
Are those lot size, I know last time we were talking about trying to make a house on the 8,500, 9,500 square foot. What size would those lots be?
These would be required to be a minimum of 7,500 square feet.
75?
Yes, sir. I mean, unless you made that a condition of annexation and rezoning. This is another reason why we're looking at changing these things, is because we always have to take our zoning ordinance and then make it fit the project, or you take the project and make it fit I mean, it's not G and Han, so we gotta get it where either we want the product like we have it in our zoning ordinance, or we need to rewrite that so what's in the zoning ordinance and what people are shooting at as a target will be what we want.
I thought the last time we were saying they were gonna need to be 8,500 square feet. That's where I asked you that.
Yeah, we
Was that
made,
not
we
what we
did.
discussed?
The other annexation rezone was required to have a larger lot size as a condition of the rezone and annexation. And, you know, again, anytime there's an annexation or rezone before you, you can add conditions to the motion.
Any other questions or comments? You want to move on to beer and wine package sales?
Thank you, sir.
Wait,
He
don't go
didn't,
anywhere.
he didn't do that.
I
does he?
need you for beer and wine package sales.
City attorney usually just notate that those are in order, and I believe they all are. And they'll,
Hamaco and Rite Aid.
Item number 2 and number 3 under discussion have been reviewed by my office.
Okay.
They've been found to be in order.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
yes, sir.
Appointment to the tree board, Logan.
Yeah, we have one more appointment for the tree board. Miss Susan Brown, the appointment expires March 1st, 2018, and she's requested to continue to serve and be reappointed.
Great, thank you. Second reading of the driveway ordinance amendment. Patrick or Paul?
I think that's Mr. Kelly's
Just a
primary project.
That actually was on the agenda just as a notation that it would be coming up. We had discussed it previously last month, and it'll be coming before you for a vote next Tuesday.
And this was to prevent more curb cuts, basically, into our streets and roads, and to create better interparcel connectivity.
That's great. And if you've got any questions on that, again, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Sure.
Disclosure, Logan, conflict of interest?
Yeah, this is just standard protocol for the 2018 CDBG application. In the project area that Rodney had put forth earlier, we have to note any conflicts of interest by any property owners in that target area. And in here we have the required letters covering Mr. Norman Garrett, council member, and Mr. Paul Rosenthal, city attorney, for any conflicts of interest, and that will be turned over to the state DCA.
Perfect, thank you. Next point.
All right.
CDBG application 2018.
Yeah. Flipping too far. And on that point, the resolution here before you, we don't have to get into the full reading of it, but this is a resolution to be signed by the mayor and attested by the city clerk for the CDBG application for the FY 2018 award year. Any questions? I'll be happy to take those or refer to Rodney for any technicalities.
Any questions or comments? Moving along to the amended police vehicle lease purchase.
All right, this is back before you, and I'll bring Chief Glass up to help answer any questions. This was tabled from the previous meeting. Really only modification to this is change of one Tahoe to a Durango SSV, which will then create a matching fleet within the CID division. Total cost, $61,054.84 this fiscal year.
That total cost brings it under the budgeted amount in the insurance claims that we have back. There were questions, all questions that have been emailed or brought to me have been answered through email. This has been emailed to Public Safety Chair and Mayor and Mr. Probst, and then to the council body. So, pending your questions.
With any more questions? Any comments?
Are they still trying to purchase 9 vehicles at one time?
Yes,
I
sir.
believe it's still 9, right?
The total amount has not changed. We just amended one of the vehicles that was being purchased, moved it down from a Tahoe to the Durango, which is a little bit cheaper model, and creates uniformity in that CID fleet.
So you're getting 5 Tahoe instead of 6 Tahoe?
Correct.
Actually takes total cost down $776.49. So it actually lowers the cost of the leases for our first year.
Okay.
What would that run per year, at a whole physical year, not half the year, like when you're talking about getting them in 5? For a whole year, how much would them vehicles actually run for all 9 of them?
Some will come in the 4th month, some will come in the 5th month. Probably, I would say, just trying to look at these numbers and break it down, this probably would be about $85,000 to $90,000 would be my guess.
Looking for that full amortization.
What this, you may have it, Logan.
Yeah, I was looking for that amortization.
What this allows us to do is when we start budgeting for next year, what myself and Chief Watts will be able to hand to y'all is a 10-year plan that shows you what this is going to cost us over a 10-year period, which lets us budget for it, which also allows Enterprise to help us manage it where when the vehicle gets to the point of no return or where it's best to exit it from the vehicle because of maintenance and whatever's costing us more money. We have that number, and this is the only thing that I've seen in my 25 years of law enforcement that gives a fleet manager a good decade-long plan, and that's one of the pluses.
But if you're saying it's basically gonna run $90,000 a year over 10 years, that's right at $900,000 for a 10-year plan for cars that we'll never own.
But, the whether or not we own them is not the point. The point is, if you have 40 cars in our fleet that are standard use by the officers, excluding stuff for misclean or other staff that needs, that instead of buying 40 cars and selling them or getting rid of them at the end of their lives, we're going to be spending less, but it'll be managed longer term. So it doesn't matter whether you lease them or you purchase them, it's what's the best value to the taxpayer in getting the same service.
This is a lease purchase, so at any point when we decide we don't want to continue this program, we just pull back and it's just like any other lease purchase that we do. The vehicles are still ours at the end of the day. That's the other advantage of this. It's not a strict lease program, it's a lease purchase program.
I think it's something that, if it performs the way it should perform, I think it's something that council may want to look at citywide on the vehicles of those types, whether it's pickup trucks or sedans or anything that you're leasing that they help you manage. One of the scenarios that I looked at actually showed $700,000 to $800,000 savings over a 10-year period versus buying vehicles and trying to manage them that way.
How much do them Charger cost per year fully loaded?
I emailed all y'all that. Is it not on there?
It's not in the packet, but I know we circulated it.
40, a Dodge Charger. I don't have the Dodge Charger on here. I have the Tahoe, the Silverado, the Durangos. I can tell you what they're gonna cost you. I don't have the old one.
I'm talking about the cars we've been purchasing, not the...
So those were, fully outfitted, a little over $34,000. The equipping of the Chargers is actually a lot more expensive than it is to equip the SUVs. Correct me if I'm wrong, RV back there, but I believe it was around $11,000 or $12,000 per Charger to outfit versus $6,000 for an SUV.
The patrol vehicles are gonna be real similar in what it costs because of how you have to package it, you know, with cages and the seats, et cetera, et cetera. The information that I've sent out, you know, I've indicated exact reasons why the Tahoe right now is the best vehicle that we can go to based on the maintenance, the safety record. Mr. Steele just showed me tonight that I got a Charger back at Aiken now that's got a $3,000 transmission I got to put in it that is not under warranty. There's options that I pointed out in the material that I've emailed you, and Dodge actually will have a Durango that's pursuit rated in 2019. That may give us something to compare. When the Crown Victoria went away, it left a hole in safety and durability in the police world because everybody thought it was going to be what they were doing was the best thing in the world. But I know Mr. Adcock's got a Crown Victoria that's pretty solid and been around a while, but you know, we just, as I pointed out in the emails, right now, based on every research that I've done, that Tahoe is the best and safest vehicle that we can put our folks in. Not only on that end, but on the economic end, is that the value that it holds. And that when you move it out of the fleet, and this is something that Enterprise will help us do, is they'll look at it, and if it gets to that point, they'll say if you hang on it one more year, it's going to cost you $5,000. If you get rid of it now, it's worth $5,000 more than it would be if you put another 10,000 miles on it. And I think that's a plus, a big plus in managing the fleet.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask your support. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Approval of the 2018 concert series. Ms. Crosick?
These are the contracts for the 4 First Friday concerts that we're hoping to do this summer. Would be May, June, August, and September. We also have hired staging and sound with the bands that don't provide their own sound. So you'll see the August one also has sound with it. The rest is just the stage, and sometimes stage with the roof if it's required, and the rider from the bands. Be happy to answer any questions you have. This is in keeping with the price that we usually expect. It's usually between this, usually around $23,000. It's a little less this year.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Looking forward to the concert series. We'll jump on this next week. Is there any additional business that we need to discuss tonight? Any comments? Hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Garrett, and a second.
Second.
Mr. Adcock. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.